Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Kristi.
What are we talking about today, Kristi?
We are talking about scratching the right enrichment itch.
Say that 3 times fast.
I hesitated there for a second.
It's a really cute name.
It is. Good job, Heather. Heather came up with that.
We are recording in person together this time, so if audio sounds a little bit different, that is why. We also have Trin and...
Oh, right on cue.
Trin and Kristi's foster Jaxon here, so you might hear a little this and that. We are going to get rolling. So why did we start to talk about this?
Yeah, so I have a foster right now, Jaxon. He is a very young German Shepherd mix, and I have been doing all the enrichment things to keep him out of trouble. However, he has a few habits like stealing everything. And when I say stealing, you're probably thinking counter surfing. It's so far beyond that. If you leave a trash bag in the trash can, he'll steal the trash bag out of the trash can.
Ooh.
He'll steal magnets off the refrigerator.
Oh, I know somebody else who does that.
Oh, really? No one shall be named Trin. Literally anything below 5 feet is possible game. Yeah. And so I have been working really hard to tire him out so that he doesn't do the things that frustrate me. So Jaxon had to go into another foster's home while I had my brother's dog because they don't get along. So he was with another foster for like 4 to 5 days. And when I went to pick him up, she could not stop raving about how amazing he was, how great he was, what an easy house guest he was, all these things. And so I had to ask her, well, didn't he get into things? And she said, no, nothing. Like, what do you even mean? And I'm looking around and thinking like all of these things that are on her coffee table would have been stolen at my house. And so I'm trying to pick her brain. No, he got into nothing. The biggest difference is she has 4 dogs, 2 young dogs, and then 2 middle-aged, well, 1 middle-aged and 1 older dog. So she has a total of 4 dogs plus Jaxon. They played nonstop. And it was at that moment that I realized, and I think I messaged Heather and said, this is what's lacking in my home. Jaxon has to go to a home with a playmate. There is no way that an hour a day or half an hour a day of playmate time is going to do it for him. And no amount of me walking him or giving him frozen Kongs or giving him shredding things to shred, all of these things are not meeting the enrichment need that he has, which is dog-to-dog play.
Yeah, and at the same general time, we were testing his sociability status, which we found him to be social.
Incredibly social,
Now we see that he is incredibly social.
Yes, yeah.
Dog social. And Kristi and I were having a conversation about working dogs that kind of went down a rabbit hole. And when we were having that conversation, I kind of razzed her about the type of exercise and things that she was doing with Lucy. And she was this dog's potential age, a very young dog.
Yeah.
And it was like everything came together at the same time.
Yeah.
And we were like, and that's when I had sent her, I think I sent you a voice message, and I said, hey, I think what it comes down to is with a dog like Jaxon, him not having another dog to play with and be social with, even though you're doing all the other things, all you are doing is scratching the itch of his enrichment needs.
Yeah.
Because what actually fulfills him is that dog social dog play.
Yes.
And since then, what have you been doing?
I've been scheduling a lot of play dates.
That's why Trin is here.
Yes. And literally, like, if anybody posts their dog on Instagram or on Facebook, I immediately reach out and I'm like, hey, do you want to do a play date? I am desperate and I have no qualms about reaching out to
No
people.
shame.
No shame. No shame in my game.
And what have you seen change?
Yeah, so he's doing much better we're down from, I am not exaggerating when I say he came to me and he was stealing a minimum of 20 things a day.
Yeah.
Things that I couldn't even anticipate. He maybe takes one thing a day and he usually brings it to me to check to see if he can have it. Not always. He ate my flip-flop just yesterday. So okay. But one thing instead of 20 is so huge.
It's major.
Like that's just...
And he's still an adolescent dog.
Yes.
We suspect.
Yes.
So that's a factor as well.
Of course. Yeah. The stealing a shoe or a sock is what I would expect from an adolescent dog. Stealing every sock you own, every shoe you own, every magnet, every piece of trash, the recycling cans.
Yeah.
Like, that's not...
Literally everything that is not nailed down.
Yes. It was all my bills, like everything.
I mean, take the bills.
Yeah.
So on days where you have a doggy play date for him, are you able to cut down on the other activities that you're doing with him because it's satiating a need in him, or do you just see it overall in his behavior and livability?
I definitely see it overall. I would say I probably don't cut down a ton on the other activities because a lot of the play dates are at night because, we all work. If I do them in the morning, like on a weekend, then I can typically cut down on other things, but having it at night, typically no, I don't cut down.
That makes sense.
But I can, if he has had a play date, consistent play dates, like today, I knew I had to be into work early. I needed to shower, obviously, those things. So I only had 35 minutes to walk him. And normally that would be a problem. And he just had a play date last night. So he was pretty good all day, even though he didn't have that hour-long walk this morning.
I find it so interesting because you were literally throwing everything in the kitchen sink at him.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
And you know enough about behavior and are gracious enough when you look at a dog. You're very kind in looking at what are they doing and why are they doing it and being able to give a lot of grace. But even still, you were frustrated.
Oh, I was so frustrated.
You were literally throwing everything at him that should make a dog really happy. And to say, oh, wow, I realized that something that I can't give him day to day was actually the thing.
Yeah.
The really cool part about that, too, is that thing actually makes him way more adoptable.
Right. Yeah.
Which is so amazing.
Yeah.
To know that really what the dog needs to live a good life is be with another dog.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
But had he not come to you and all of these things came together, I could see somebody getting really frustrated with it.
Yeah. And it did make me think, sometimes when a dog comes in from rescue, because of the foster home that they're in, we don't know everything. So he was in a foster home before he came to me.
Yeah, different from the one that he went on the vacation
Yes.
to? Okay.
So he was in another foster home. He got adopted. That person had a stroke and returned him, and then he went into boarding, and then I took him out of boarding. So in the other foster home, the very first foster home, she saw some of the behaviors, but not like I was seeing.
Okay.
I don't think. We haven't had in-depth conversation, but the way she addressed it was very minimal. Sometimes he'll take things. Not like, oh, he's going to ruin your life and take everything, and you're constantly going to manage this. But she has 8 dogs. So what a huge difference, right? Of course she's not going to see this desperation.
Yeah.
And I think coming out of boarding also, and he was in a great boarding facility, let me just say that. But they don't do play groups.
Yeah.
They don't do a lot of in-kennel enrichment, but mostly they don't do play groups. Yeah. So he is coming from a deficit already. Yeah. And then to also come to a home with no other dogs. Yeah. There was a sense of desperation building in him to have other dogs around.
Yeah. I feel like enrichment is such a catchword buzzword right now,
Yes.
too, in the dog world. And I think it's tough. I mean, I don't think that it's like, oh, well, let me just give my dog like a bully stick and a puzzle feeder because that's what I have time for and they're enriched for the next week. I don't, I think that obviously each dog has individual needs, but I think that this is like a really clear example of sometimes you do have to sit back and figure out the puzzle of what will fulfill your dog.
Yeah.
And if you're able to sort that all out and parse it out, it's going to make it better for everybody. Like your dog is going to be infinitely easier to live with, and the dog is going to be mentally well and have an easier time and be happier.
Yes.
And so I hate to be all buzzword, and I don't think that just, oh, well, I feed my dog in a puzzle once a day is what we're really talking about. I think we're talking about enrichment from the standpoint of what does your dog actually need to live a good life within reason of what you are capable of giving them.
Yeah.
Because we're always considering.
Right.
both.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, was just to clarify, when I know people will be like, what, were you really giving them all the enrichment? So this is typically what our day would look like. I would get up, I would walk him for about an hour. We did long walks in a variety of places. So he had a sniffari every day for about an hour, and then body movement. We were also doing some hikes for shorter amounts of time, but we moved more on those. And then when we would come home, I would typically do some fast-paced activities like throwing and catching and chasing, those types of things. And then we would do some training. And then I would typically give him some sort of food puzzle, like a rolly ball or something, so that I could get in the shower and get ready for work. And then about midday, I would give him something frozen to chew on. And then we would have a ripping activity, whether that's a toy or mail or hiding treats in a toilet paper tube or whatever, some sort of ripping activity, and then more play and training at night.
Yeah.
And he has a large yard to run around in.
Yeah, he does.
Full access at any time of day, and a kiddie pool as well. And he was and he got a lot of bones. So he was burying his bone, which he's absolutely allowed to do, and then digging them up and showing them to me again, like all of those things.
I gotta tell you, that's like 1,000,000 times more than what my dogs get in the average day.
It was a lot.
That is a lot.
It felt exhausting.
Do you think that you were doing that 5 days a week? Because like I'm thinking work days, like, or 7 days a week, or 3 days a week.
Like 6 to 7.
Ooh.
Yeah, because if I didn't, it led to catastrophe. Like,
we're so much more.
Yeah.
And tonight, well, I've been here for about 3 hours. They've been playing. And they're now both settled in, and he's sleeping on the couch.
Right. Yeah.
So that's like a significant.
Yes. One of the biggest difference I see is that he can now settle with multiple play dates. He can now settle while I'm at work. He will go and sleep, and he doesn't have to be attached to me necessarily.
You're able to open your bedroom door now, and he can go and lay on your bed.
Yeah, and
he would not have done that 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely not. And so he sleeps for several hours, and he might come in and check on me, but then he goes and sleeps most of the day. And he's an excellent, he is such a good cuddler too.
He's a good cuddler.
And he sleeps all night. So there were all these great things I could see about him, but I was just knowing
that's exhausting.
It's a lot, yeah. And I still do a minimum of a 45-minute walk with him in the morning. Typically, I try to do a minimum of 45 minutes or a mile, whatever comes first. And then I do a food enrichment a lot of times, like most days, a couple food enrichments. And then depending on if he's kind of angsty, I'll do, a bone, or a lot of times I just give him my junk mail and he rips it up. And it is a mess to clean up, but it's fine. He loves it. So I was just going to say, I think too, being aware of what individual dogs need
Yeah.
for enrichment. I've had lots of fosters over the years. The last few, Tara was one that was with a great rescue. But when she came to me, she really needed to tear things up.
Yeah.
And so I gave her paper every day to tear up. And that was her thing.
How did you discover that?
I have no idea. I think she stole a piece of paper off my desk.
And then you saw her.
And I was like, oh, she really enjoys that. So I wadded it up and threw it to her, and she was like, oh, this is the best thing in the world. And then I think I hid a treat in it, and so she really loved it then. But after she settled in, she didn't need that anymore, which was interesting too.
It was like a burn off.
Yeah. Yeah, and Julius really needed coming from the shelter and then going into a great rescue and then coming to me. He really needed to stretch his body.
Yeah, he is a big dog.
He was a big dog, so he just needed to stretch and be able to full on run. And he really... His biggest thing was he needed human contact. I said when I first got him, it was like he wanted to live inside my skin. He was like so desperate for human contact. As he settled in, it became much better. Like he wasn't so desperate for it. Yeah. So this dog-to-dog play for Tara probably would have enjoyed it fine. But Julia, that would not have been the right thing for Julius, you know? No. He did like to play with other dogs, but...
Yeah, it is really interesting just from an individual basis of what different dogs, what their needs are, and how we can make their lives so much better, and then make ours better. And if we figure out what those things are, it's like it could be less effort on our part. You know what I mean? And I think you're the same as me, and like, I love watching dogs play.
Me too.
It is no tough thing for me to be like, oh, this dog's love language. Oh, we should say that.
Yeah.
This dog's love language is dog play. Like, let me just have some dogs together, you know?
Yeah.
That's enriching for you too.
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely.
And it's so like relaxing, provided you have the right group of dogs. And
and I think dog play gives him several forms of enrichment within enrichment. So like, I think if we put him with 12, 15-year-old dogs.
Yeah. Right.
He would not come away satiated.
Right. Categories.
The body, the fast body movements. Like, I don't care what I do. I don't care how fit I am. I cannot move as fast as a dog. Like, there's just nothing I can do to do that quick of movements. And then also the biting, the play biting. Yeah. He's very, well, I don't want to say very, but he is mouthy when he doesn't get to play. Yeah. He's a shepherd, and he's not mean. He's very gentle, but he loves the play bites. Yeah. And if he can play with other dogs who are okay with that, then that's not my hand in his mouth.
Kristi posted a photo of him falling asleep with her hand in his mouth the other day.
He did, yeah. It was very sweet and cute.
And he might have done it to me tonight, and it was very soft.
Yeah, it's so, it's like
so not biting.
He literally holds your hand in his mouth with his teeth. A little teeth hug.
Yeah, I totally get that. And like he's very adaptable, but the right type of play, of which with him, because he's so social, are several options, work for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, well, and going back to what Heather said earlier about Lucy when she was young, she was a lot.
Yeah.
She was a lot.
I jokingly said you were running her 35 miles a day.
Which I was not. But I was running her 35 plus miles a week.
Yeah, which is a lot.
Which is so much. Yeah, she was running half marathons with me once or twice a week during our crazy, like 13.1 miles. Yeah. So she was a good runner. Active. Yeah, very active. But what I forgot is that when I first got her, it was a terrible time to get a dog. I was training for my first half Ironman. Yeah, so a lot of time was spent training for that. And so I would go to work all day, and then I'd go to CrossFit.
Outside of the home?
Yes, outside of the home, go to CrossFit, and then I'd come home and I'd run her or walk her 3 miles. And then, don't judge me, we would go to the dog park for an hour or two.
It's okay, we're not going to judge.
Yeah, I mean, we did it until there were too many dog fights that I just couldn't justify her safety anymore. Yeah. At that point, we had made friends with people from the dog park, and I said, hey, you guys have solid dogs. Can you just come to my house times, twice a week, even if you just want to drop off your dogs, and I will do my own doggy daycare for you, like whatever. Like my dog just needs some playtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enriching to her.
Yeah. And I had forgotten that I had done that for her.
dog.
Yeah. Because she didn't need that as she got older, you know. She still enjoyed it.
She still did enjoy it, but on different terms.
Yeah.
She liked certain dogs. She wouldn't have put up with the pushiness of Jaxon as an older dog.
Right. No, she wouldn't have, but yet I think she would have corrected him fairly, and they would have found a balance.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
What's different, I think, about Lucy was she was great in one-on-one situations, not groups. Kind of trying to figure out too, even if your dog their need is dog play.
Yeah.
It may look really different.
Oh yeah.
Or if your dog's need is digging, it might look really different for that specific dog.
Yeah.
So even kind of the quirks inside.
Being creative.
Yeah.
And figuring out what the right thing is. And then, of course, always considering the individual if you have multiple dogs.
Yeah. How do you find that your 3 have different enrichment needs?
I mean, Tiago just wants to be with me.
Okay.
If I trained him every day, that would be very enriching to him. So everyone, Kristi is a better owner than me. We already know that.
Can I also say, let's just give grace, because everybody does the minimum like that they can get away with. If you can get away with less, you will.
And Tiago's needs at 7 are very different than his needs at 3.
Absolutely.
So I will say that. I mean, when he was a young adolescent dog, Jackson's age, Trin's age, we were going to classes 3 and 4 nights a week. So it's very different. That's his needs. At this point, Tater would like to lay in the sun. That is his number one, let me just be in the vitamin D. And he wants to just kind of like hang out and sleep in his taco. Like he goes out and he'll play with Trin maybe for a short stint each day. But just kind of hanging out, relaxing at this point is really where his jam is. And for Trin, she's pretty much up for anything. I mean, she'll dog play, yes. Any kind of puzzle thing, yes. Training, yes. She will take all the things. She will also go and entertain herself, which I really love that quality of the dog. She will go off with a toy or something and sort of, do her own thing. And I love that independent spirit about a dog that's like totally fine to kind of go off and do their own thing. Her needs are honestly probably even though she's the youngest dog, her needs are probably the easiest to meet in a lot of ways. Well, no. Her needs at this age versus Tiago's needs at this age are way easier. Because Tiago at this age had go, 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 go. And she is very much like, okay, I did something, like, I'm good. She's very go with the flow that way. She's more like Tater that way with the on-off switch.
Okay, yeah.
So, but that's kind of like interesting to think about, the difference between the boys now and then and us talking about Lucy and, the difference in the age.
Yeah, it changes. So a lot of enrichment, I think, is just allowing for dogs' natural behavior. And because natural behavior, too, changes as they age, the enrichment changes.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the enrichment, like digging and tearing and chasing, all of those are pretty natural things that dogs should do, but don't always have access to in today's society.
Yeah, and that lack of access to natural dog things could absolutely present in some really yucky other ways.
Yeah.
Like grabbing and stealing, all of the things.
All the things.
All of the things.
Yeah. And honestly, if your dog hates it, it's not enriching to them. Like, stop doing it.
That's so true. Hey, guys. If they don't like it, then it's not enrichment.
Yeah.
You're scratching no itch.
Yeah. And I would even say, even if your dog is exhausted after an activity, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was enriching to them.
I completely agree.
It may have just been really stressful.
Yes.
So there is like a component of watching enrichment for actual enjoyment, and if it's a happy exhausted.
Yeah.
Like there is a difference between the exhausted you feel after you go on the most beautiful hike of your life and the exhausted you feel after the most daunting test of your life.
Yes.
You're exhausted both ways, but yeah.
Yeah.
Very different.
I completely agree. That's very solid advice. And I think what comes along with that is knowing your individual dog and or being observant of any dog that comes into your life, however that might happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't we give some ideas for enrichment?
Yeah, there are literally endless amounts of ways to enrich your dog's life.
And without spending money.
Without spending
Or
money.
very little money. Like so many DIYs now.
Yes. In fact, one DIY that I do pretty consistently I did it for Lucy, I did it for Julius, although it really stressed him out, so we stopped doing it for Julius. And I've done it for Jaxon, is just taking your toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls and folding the ends in and putting treats in there.
Yeah.
And then letting your dog tear that up to get the treats.
Yeah.
Or if they're like, that's too easy, that took 1 second and was not that fun, put a rag through it and roll the treats up in the rag and let them get it that way.
Old towels.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you have laying around, and utilize that.
Yeah.
And I would say too, an enrichment activity. So I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who makes snuffle mats, and I love her mats because they're like super heavy duty, blah, blah, blah. And she was saying to me that somebody had said to her, oh, it doesn't work. My dog started to shred it. Make sure that you're using the enrichment item in the way it's intended, and recognize, like, if your dog's shredding the snuffle mat, either one, it went too long, it's not a fit in some way. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to abandon it, but you need to like sit back and be like, okay, why is this not working the way I think it should be working? Yeah. So definitely utilizing the activities in a smart way that's safe at the same time.
Yeah.
So a lot of DIY stuff out there, you know, just kind of put some thought into it and think about your dog.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily, unless it's something that's super safe and meant to be unattended, I probably wouldn't just leave unattended and let them have at it unless you really know your dog well, or it's something that's like, you know, a Kong that you're stuffing that's safe and you put a straw through it so it doesn't get stuck on their tongue and all of that stuff. And there's a lot of different options for that kind of stuff out there too. So...
There are, some cheap things I did for Jaxon this week was, I don't know if anybody has heard of the lettuce challenge. It was like a big in some dog communities, like maybe 6 months ago. And it's just a head of iceberg lettuce, washed, obviously, and just toss it to your dog and see what they do. So I really wanted it to be a little more than it was. I've now done it with 3 dogs, and like nobody's really played with it. I thought he would play with it like a ball.
Oh yeah.
You know, he was like, this is not a ball, lady. But he did then start shredding it. And I'm like, man, they could hire you as a lettuce shredder. Yeah. So he shredded probably 3/4 of it before he got tired of shredding. And so that was like a fun shredding activity. And it was 99 cents for a head of iceberg lettuce. Yeah. Another thing, I have carrots in the fridge that I'm going to soak in chicken broth, diluted chicken broth, and freeze for a bone type enrichment activity. That's super cheap too.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. There's not even a couple, there's several good Facebook groups too.
Yes.
And YouTube videos. I mean, literally all you have to do is Google DIY enrichment activities for dogs and you will fall down a rabbit hole. I don't know if we should say you're welcome or we are sorry. But there's so many options out there for people to try. Of course, keep in mind if you have multiple dogs and you're having resourced items, you want to keep that in mind.
Of course. Yeah, I do treat scatters on our walks in the grass a lot of times for Jaxon, and I've been trying to work on his recall, so I'm doing like a treat toss where he actually goes and finds the treat, and then I call him back and he gets a treat, and we change the direction every time of where that treat is tossed. He gets some chasing and snuffling and food, all of it.
Yeah.
Together. And training. Yeah. So
I love it.
I like when you can combine things and you get
especially a dog that likes to train.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he does like to train. Yeah.
Of course, training's enriching.
Yeah.
For not every dog.
Not every dog,
Not every dog, but most dogs.
Yeah.
Training is going to be enriching. It might not be enriching for you.
Yeah.
But that's something to consider too. And of course, when we're talking about all these things, we want to make sure that you're keeping yourself in mind as well.
Yes. Yeah. If you hate hiking, maybe don't hike. Like, if you hate running, maybe don't take your dog running. But maybe you love biking instead.
Yeah.
And you can get that little, the bike chore. There's so many options. Yeah. I was thinking through options, and I think I made a whole page of just things that came to
She has a lot of notes over here, people.
a digging area.
Yeah.
So I think this is big because I don't think a lot of people come to this naturally. We don't want our dogs digging in our yards, most of us. And so if you create a space that allows your dog to dig, they're probably going to get that out of their system. And so make a fun, get a super cheap plastic pool.
Little turtle sandbox.
Yeah, fill it with sand or dirt. You can even hide some toys in there or treats or whatever. Yeah, and let that be their space. Obviously, if it's outdoors, maybe cover it at night so the cats don't. Or maybe that's enriching too. So gross, but
you're on there.
it's so gross, but enriching.
The turtle sandbox has a lid.
Yes, I believe they do.
Perfection.
Yeah. So.
Play school, give us a little.
Oh yeah. We are sponsored by no one. Play school.
Play school.
Bones, obviously, that's an easy.
All types of bones.
Yeah.
Frozen bones.
Yeah.
Tracheas, all the things.
All of it. Stuffed bones, not stuffed. All of it. Yeah. Car ride.
Yes.
With sometimes as simple as a car ride or as simple as putting your window down. We were just talking about that with friends last night. I was saying they will drive through a nearby neighborhood and put the windows down and let their dogs smell the horses and cows and the chickens, because we're in the city and there's these random county islands that have space for horses and chickens and cows and all the things. And so they just drive through every now and then on their way home. That's pretty easy. Yeah.
That is easy.
Dog sports.
Always.
Of course.
If your dog likes that.
Yeah, group classes, individual classes. If your dog's older, wagon rides.
Oh,
yeah. If they can't.
Don't make fun of the neighborhood guy who's taking his dog in a stroller.
Oh my gosh, no.
Dog might be 16.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah. I wish everybody would do that. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, all the dog play activities that we already talked about, that we've learned with Jaxon.
Mm-hmm. There's treadmills.
Yeah.
There's now companies that will come to your house.
Run Buddy.
Yeah.
That's what we have local.
Yeah, local is Run Buddy, and then there's another one I can't remember, but yeah.
Maybe what's enriching is you take your dog to daycare once or twice.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you make some doggy play groups like you did for Lucy, of trusted dogs.
Yeah.
The opportunities are really endless, truly endless. And I think that the point is just figuring out what works for your dog.
Yeah.
Or your dogs. And then also what works for you.
Yeah.
And you don't need to feel like you need to do all the things all the time.
Right. Yeah.
When you can. Why not?
Yeah, and I think I would say one thing I just wrote down as an idea for enrichment. I put brunch, and then I put a star, and I put but often not.
Yes.
So I think a lot of times we as humans think, oh, it'll be so enriching for our dog to come to lunch with us or brunch or, have girl time on the patio, all the things. But that's a lot. It's a lot for dogs.
It's a lot.
I was very thankful Lucy could do it, and occasionally she was enriched by it, but mostly it was something that she could do and she would get through, but it was not enjoyable for her because what is she doing? Literally being forced to sit and wait while you eat in front of her. That's not super fun.
Do a sit or a down stay for an hour.
Yeah. Or if you're with friends for an hour and a half. Yeah, that's a lot to ask of a dog. Someone asked me if I wanted to do brunch with Jaxon and their dog. And I said, absolutely not. That is a disaster. He's young. I just don't think it would be fun for him.
For Trin either.
Yeah.
No way.
It's a lot.
As a young puppy, I took her to a ton of restaurants, patios, etc. for socialization. 7.5 months old, that's just not something that we're doing right now. She's not ready for it. I wouldn't enjoy myself either, and I think she could potentially be frustrated by it. And that's not good for anybody. Now, Tiago, all day long.
Absolutely.
His whole life, every single day. Take me to a patio, let me have brunch, and sit with you while you drink a mimosa all day long.
Yeah, he would love that. Yeah.
It's a lot for Tater too. It's not. It has to be the perfect environment for Tater.
Right.
Because everything can be overstimulating for him. Yeah. And with his noise sensitivity, it's not always the best the best way to go for him.
Yeah. So. And for Lucy, like, she didn't enjoy meeting new people. She loved the people she loved.
She loved her people.
And she was never mean, but she didn't want to make friends with everyone. So a bunch of random people reaching their hand towards her, not super fun for her. And she had a bit of separation anxiety if I would leave her. And so not like in the home or anything, but like out in public place. So even if I left her with trusted people while I went to order, that was just really stressful for her and not fun.
And then you kind of say, who am I doing this for? Yeah, I hear you. I think in so many ways we've gone like dog society and like to the detriment of some dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people probably.
Probably, yeah. Because I think there's a lot of people out there who would rather not take their dog to things, but feel like to be a good dog owner, they should be including their dog. Yeah.
I hear you. Okay, so to wrap it all up, although enrichment is a buzzword right now, we're still going to say, figure out how to scratch the enrichment itch. I had to do it one more time.
Yeah.
And what does that look like that is as enriching for your dog and also low stress for you? I'm not going to say enriching for the human because I don't think some activities, it would be weird.
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay. But at least low stress, easy for you to do for your dog.
Right.
So that we're considering the dog and the human as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Awesome.
If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.